travel is not only a journey from one place to another, but can be a powerful learning tool. It can help us build bridges of understanding, celebrate our differences, and exchange ideas. Each trip is an opportunity for personal growth, inspiring us to acknowledge the past and use what we have learned to create a brighter future. Manitoba, the ancestral homeland of the Métis Nation and other Indigenous peoples of present-day Canada, is a treasure trove of rich Indigenous stories, heritage, and attractions. Join me as we explore some of the incredible places in Manitoba to experience the beauty, history, and spirit of Indigenous traditions and artistic expression. From bannock-making to viewing the largest public collection of contemporary Inuit art worldwide, we'll start in Riding Mountain National Park and then make our way to Winnipeg. I am thrilled to partner with Travel Manitoba and Tourism Winnipeg on this episode. You're listening to part 2 of a 2-part series exploring Indigenous history, culture, and heritage through the Canadian provinces of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I recommend going back and listening to episode 174 for part 1 of this 2-part series. In that episode, I share highlights from my Saskatchewan trip. You can find all the links mentioned in the episode description. Read along and see the accompanying visuals by visiting my travel blog at thoughtcard.com. I'm Danielle Desir-Corbett. Welcome to the Thought Card. Welcome to the Thought Card, a podcast about travel and money, where planning, saving, and creativity leads to affording travel, building wealth, and paying off debt. We are the financially savvy travelers. I started my road trip from Regina in the province of Saskatchewan, where I picked up my car rental from Regina International Airport. Within a few minutes, I was driving on Highway 1, part of the Trans-Canada Highway, one of the longest national highways in the world. I set my sights on Riding Mountain National Park, 4 hours away. The picturesque prairies stretching as far as the eye can see, and the freedom to blast my favorite high school rock band, Blink-182, for 4 hours straight made the solo road trip such a fun experience. By the way, having total control over what music you play is one of the perks of solo road tripping. Following the GPS, I veered off the highway onto dirt roads a few times. Initially nerve-wracking, these detours soon became a part of the adventure, and I found myself navigating them with ease, eventually. Closer to Riding Mountain National Park, the landscape changed from flat grasslands to rolling hills, studded with lush green forests, glistening lakes, and smaller bodies of water. While exploring Riding Mountain National Park, I soaked in the hot tubs at Clarksville Nordic Spa and cruised Clear Lake with the Métis. 2 activities I highly recommend adding to your travel itinerary. Our first stop is Turtle Village in Riding Mountain National Park. Turtle Village is a remarkable destination that offered a unique experience, a definite highlight of my trip. Turtle Village opened its doors in the heart of the Wasagaming Campground in August 2023. Turtle Village is the first Indigenous-owned and operated glamping accommodation within Treaty 2 territory, the traditional territory of the 7 nations Anishinaabe of Riding Mountain. During my visit, I had the privilege of sitting down with Ashley Smith, the passionate owner and operator of Turtle Village and Clear Lake Ice Fishing Village, who shared her personal connection to this place.
I belong to Gambler First Nation. I moved here recently, about 3 years ago, to find my roots. And since then, we've just been going hard and trying to create new experiences in the area. But I grew up north, up in Gila, Manitoba, up by Churchill. So trees, rocks, and water, very isolated, 17 years. moved down south with my now husband and finished high school. After that, we lived on our reserve. I was a housing manager for 10 years. During COVID, things were changing, so I felt I needed a change, and we started. A big interest of mine was the housing crisis here in Canada, and especially Manitoba, living on First Nation. So I wanted to find solutions, and that's kind of what birthed Turtle Village. So we live in a mini home, 400 square feet, the family of 5. We bought 80 acres just outside the park. So we wanted to live our experience and then share that with others.
Opening an all-season summer and winter off-grid glamping destination was historically and personally significant, as Ashley Smith's ancestor, John Falcon Tanner, was the first to build winter lodging at Clear Lake in 1799.
What it means to me when I came back and found out a bit more of my history, my ancestor back in the 1700s, John Falcon Tanner, was known to build winter lodging here around the shores of Clear Lake. So when I found that out, I'm like, oh my goodness, I found where I'm supposed to be. So we decided that we're going to go for it and show people a different experience here. Not only, the mini home off-grid experience, also ecotourism, but winter lodging.
Ashley explained that opening Turtle Village was a long process, filled with bureaucratic red tape. If you're doing the math, it has taken over 220 years since Ashley's ancestors were first on the land for descendants to return. It's been quite the journey.
We're still not back here. We're only one Indigenous business in the whole area, so it's not easy. And if it was, there'd be more people. So we want to change that process. We had to really earn almost our trust. We had to prove ourselves of who we were and, how we want to operate what we have here, that we were going to be an asset to the area.
Yes.
But I think there was fear of the unknown. Yeah. And so a little bit more into that is most times you're going to see a whole First Nation come and do business.
I see.
So I'm a sole proprietor, so that made things even more complicated, I think, because it's rare. It's very rare to get out of that system, the system of poverty, the system of isolation. You don't see this. I didn't even know Travel Manitoba or Indigenous tourism or, Destination Canada. I had no idea these things were even a thing 2 years ago. Because we didn't travel. We don't know. We never definitely went and experienced Clear Lake in this way. We would just come here and go swimming, but we never, had a cabin or anything here. So now we do, and it's surreal.
It's changing.
It's just so surreal. But I'm so excited because I have 3 children, and they all have a part in this, and they get to keep this going and then add to
legacy.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Turtle Village is leading the way in introducing Indigenous-led tourism back to Riding Mountain National Park. The park was created in the 1930s by pushing the Anishinaabe off the land.
Being the first Indigenous owned and operated tourism destination here, it was unknown, uncharted territories. So the process was very long. We were almost a year and a half into this process. We quickly had to pivot because we lost the winter season before we were able to get onto the ice. So that's how these became turtle shell accommodations rather than ice fishing huts.
Can you explain the name Turtle Village? What does that mean to you? Is there any significance there?
There is, and it's cute to me and I love it. So just like a turtle has its shell, it's big enough for him. It keeps him safe from the elements. He can get up and go wherever he needs, and due to weather or crisis or whatever it takes, he always has his home with him. So that's what I designed with Turtleback Homes, is like something that's going to be low maintenance, that's going to keep you, as our ancestors were, where we traveled a lot. So I don't like the feeling of being stuck somewhere. Even though I might stay there for a while, I like the option of being able to get up and go and take my home with me.
Witnessing the housing crisis as a housing manager within Indigenous communities is another inspiration for the creation of Turtle Village. Ashley hopes Turtle Village demonstrates how we can enjoy high quality yet affordable housing that leaves no footprint on our land and requires little maintenance.
Gosh, my personal journey, I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I find it hard to work for somebody, again, being tied down. I grew up trying different things all my life, and then I got a passion for the housing crisis. And, that's where things really started to blossom for me, and ideas were coming in my head. And how can other people experience this? A lot of people can't commit to maybe buying a mini home. So I wanted to give that opportunity to try it. It's been a lot of fun doing these add-on experiences now, and the ice fishing village. We're a family-owned and operated business, so I get to do this with my kids. My husband supports everything I do, so I'm just having a lot of fun. It has been challenging, for sure, but I don't think there's any entrepreneur out there that doesn't expect challenges. Some of them were quite difficult and painful to go through, but I think going through that, it's going to help me help anybody else that wants to rise up behind.
Promoting a balanced life and spending time outdoors, Turtle Village's 8 off-grid turtle shells are compact and sleep 2 people in a queen-size bed. Bedding isn't provided, so bring your own sheets, pillows, blankets, and anything else you may require for camping, like toiletries and cooking supplies. You can, however, charge your phone and laptop. During the winter months, enjoy the ice fishing village, located right on Clear Lake. Through the guided ice fishing experience, connect with nature and embrace the fishing culture, techniques, and traditions pre-contact. Tying the old in with the new, you'll also learn about new, innovative ways to fish.
We want to encourage people to get outside, and so you're going to be provided with a picnic table and a fire pit.
Powered by solar panels, backed by batteries, and heated with propane, the sustainable accommodations at Turtle Village were built with a strong commitment to minimal impact on the environment. While I didn't get a chance to stay here, I toured a turtle shell and was impressed by the amenities, which included Indigenous-themed decor, woodwork, and multifunction furnishing. In addition to booking a glamping experience, Ashley offers guests add-on cultural experiences such as making bannock over an open fire. She walked me through the pre-contact history of Clearwater Lake in the 1700s and the history of the Tanner bloodline, and then showed me how to make bannock over the fire, a cultural experience not to be missed. So what is bannock? Ashley's oldest daughter, Jaylee, shares more.
Bannock was introduced by the Scottish. There was a famine in the land, and the Scottish provided the First Nations people with flour, lard, and other ingredients, but the flour was rotten and the lard was, it wasn't good. It wasn't good to use, but they still made bannock out of it, and they made what they could out of it. So we still use it today during powwows and gatherings, and it's one of my favorite dishes. You can fry it, you can bake it, you can cook it over the fire, you could wrap hot dogs, and they would usually eat it with berries that they'd pick from around the area, and yeah, we still use it to this day.
The picnic table was set with plates and bowls. Bannock by Bangin' Bannock, an Indigenous woman-owned business, which you can order online, water, prairie berries, and honey. Bannock can be prepared as dessert, with stew, as a side, or snack.
Oh, that looks good.
Am I doing good?
You're doing
okay.
perfect.
Excellent.
Okay, now we're going to get our hands dirty.
Okay.
When I was doing research on different ways to cook bannock traditionally, I know how we cook it today. Of course, it's deep fried, or we bake it in the oven, or we'll cook it on a stick over the fire. But I was like, what did they use back then prior to, our oven? And so, yeah, you're going to want to make this about as thick as your pinky and the size of your palm. In our area here in Riding Mountain, we used to use rocks to cook our fish and meat and different things on. So I was like, wow, it's like the first frying pan. So you have to use a specific rock that isn't going to shatter or explode. So we found what those were, and then we were like, oh, we were so excited to test this out. So you're gonna put that right on your rock, and we're gonna let that sit. It's gonna rise. As soon as it starts to rise, we're gonna flip it.
For my first time cooking on the rocks, I was surprised by how easy bannock was to make. Within 10 minutes, it started to brown and was ready to eat. It was a little sweeter than expected, but absolutely delicious, with honey drizzled on top. It reminded me of French toast. Saskatoon berries or raspberries are other topping options. Ashley Smith and I parted ways with a big hug. And me, a new-to-me recipe I couldn't wait to share with my family. Have you ever had bannock? What about cooking on rocks? Let me know if you'd give it a try. On the road again, it took me approximately 3 hours to reach Winnipeg, the capital and largest city of the province of Manitoba. Making up 12% of the population, Winnipeg has the largest Indigenous population in an urban setting in Canada. Winnipeg is recognized as the birthplace of the Métis Nation. Indigenous people of Canada mix with First Nations and European ancestry. In Winnipeg, you'll find our next stop, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights, the first museum dedicated to the evolution and future of human rights, not just in Canada, but worldwide. The museum stands at the Forks, a meeting place for thousands of years. Before construction, an archaeological excavation uncovered 400,000 artifacts here. When you visit, near the entrance, you'll see a well-preserved moccasin footprint from 750 years ago. This discovery underscores the presence of Indigenous people and their connection to the land for thousands of years, long before the arrival of European settlers. The building itself is an architectural wonder. As you explore galleries, the LED-lit alabaster ramps crisscross upwards, symbolizing a path from darkness to light. It culminates at a viewing platform with panoramic views of the city. With various permanent exhibits and traveling galleries, Indigenous perspectives and Canadian journeys stood out to me. But first, let's define human rights. At the museum, you'll learn that human rights are an idea thousands of years in the making. They refer to our rights and freedoms simply because we are humans. At Indigenous Perspectives, learn how for First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people, everyone and everything is interrelated. So human rights extend beyond rules and laws. Respect all life. Take only what you need. Canadian Journeys shares 12 Canadian human rights stories, many of which I had never heard of, like the Red Dress Project. Some of what I share will be hard to hear, but truths are truths, no matter how dark they are. The Red Dress Project by Jamie Black, a Métis visual artist, left a profound imprint on me. Indigenous women and children are 3 times more likely to experience violence than other women in Canada. Many murders remain unsolved and tend to receive little mainstream attention. Winnipeg in particular has the largest number of missing Indigenous women and children in the country. Cases aren't usually taken seriously, and there are demands for urgency and systemic change. Bringing awareness to this critical national issue, the art installation by Jamie Black displays hanging red dresses that serve as a reminder for the thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls who are no longer with us. The exhibit spotlights that Indigenous women and girls have rights to safety and justice. The dresses move slightly in the air, hauntingly eerie, painful to see and think about. Another exhibit highlighted the impact of residential schools, which destroyed Indigenous families and their way of life. Here's a bit of a backstory. From 1871 to 1996, reportedly, 150,000 Indigenous children were separated from their families and placed in government and religious-sponsored residential schools far away from home. Here, generations of children suffered from neglect, abuse, or worse, death. At residential schools, children's hair was forcibly cut short. Indigenous clothing, languages, rituals, and food were prohibited. Siblings were separated, further destroying family relationships. This system of cultural destruction led to the loss of connection to their Indigenous language and culture, and resulted in poor parenting, substance abuse, poverty, incarceration, homelessness, and domestic violence. The abuses of residential schools are still felt today. However, all is not lost. Indigenous peoples across Canada are reclaiming their history and restoring their connection to their ancestral cultures. Cultural and traditional practices have reemerged along with spiritual and other healing practices, such as smudging, sweat lodges, sacred pipes, fasting, and ceremonies, all of which contribute to the ongoing healing process. Canadian Journeys goes on to spotlight the rights of people with disabilities, racial segregation, and those who struggled with religious oppression, to name a few. At the Canadian Human Rights Museum, you will be confronted with many human rights issues, some from Canada and others from all over the world, sparking important conversations. While we may have come a long way, our work is far from over. The fight for human rights is ongoing. Located in Assiniboine Park, visit the Leaf to explore 4 biomes from around the world. The Leaf beautifully showcases the natural diversity and how plants shape the cultural fabric of Manitoba. Using storytelling, it examines the connection between individuals and plants. Having Caribbean roots, I immediately connected to the humid tropical biome, which housed many of the plants I grew up with, like sugarcane, plantains, coffee, and corn. In the tropical biome, you can't miss Canada's largest indoor waterfall, cascading around 60 feet tall. It's a stunning sight to see, reminding me of the majestic waterfalls in Iceland. The waterfall empties into a fish pond where you'll see large koi fish swimming. Next, go to the dry Mediterranean biome, where the smell of herbs and pines greets you. Take the elevator to the Canopy Walk, where you can see the waterfall from another vantage point. Marvel at the Leaf's architecture and spend time at the Butterfly Garden. Head outside to explore the Indigenous Peoples Garden, which celebrates Indigenous peoples' deep connection to the land. Learn how plants have been used for healing for millennia and other natural remedies. Sage, for example, is used for its cleansing and purifying properties, both physically and spiritually. By the way, I referenced this in the previous episode recounting my time in Saskatchewan, so go check out episode 174 for more. Sage is often burned in smudging ceremonies to clear negative energy, create a sacred atmosphere, and clear mental fog, confusion, and distractions. Roaming the kitchen garden, you'll see various fruits, veggies, and herbs such as green apples, cilantro, coriander, tomatoes, dill, sweetgrass, and cedar. Seasonal ingredients from the gardens can be found at the on-site restaurant, Gather Craft Kitchen and Bar. In the heart of downtown Winnipeg, art enthusiasts can visit Kamayuk Art Gallery, home to the world's largest public collection of Inuit art. Walking through the glass doors and into the lobby, you'll first see the 3-story visible vault, which houses almost 5,000 Inuit stone carvings. Interestingly, the name Kamayuk means it is bright, it is lit, in Inuktitut, an Inuit language of Canada, accurately describing the natural light that fills the space. Notice how the silkstone carvings are organized by community and color. Spot common recurring themes such as scenes of daily life, animals, and living on the land. No longer hidden from view or in storage, the visible vault makes the artwork accessible to the public, artists, their families, and communities. Inspiring the next generation of talented artists, it's not uncommon for a featured artist or relative to visit the gallery and see their work. The oldest artwork in the vault is from the 1940s. Continue to the Art by Inuit exhibition, which displays 400 pieces of Inuit art from Siberia, Alaska, Canada, and Greenland. For fascinating finds, see a small pair of ancient goggles that prevented sun blindness dating back to approximately 200 BCE, and a 2,000-year-old figural needle case. Worn around the neck, they were fashionable and essential for storing needles, to sew or repair clothing. Both these items offer a glimpse into how the Inuit lived. There's also an extensive collection of contemporary artwork. Beyond stone carvings, notice a variety of mediums such as ivory, whalebone, printmaking, wall hangings, photography, clothing, and more. I kept returning to the pieces celebrating motherhood, showcasing the strong bond between mother and child, an inseparable pair. As a mother myself, the importance of the family unit resonated with me. Art can be a powerful learning tool. Visiting the Kamayuk Art Gallery gave me a glimpse into Inuit values, beliefs, and ways of life, past and present, through art. Food is an integral part of Indigenous culture. For rich culinary experiences that showcase Indigenous people and their rich food knowledge, enjoy authentic Indigenous cuisine at one of Winnipeg's Indigenous-owned restaurants, like Feast Cafe Bistro in Winnipeg's West End. On a Friday afternoon, the restaurant was packed and buzzing with patrons from near and far. This restaurant features modern dishes rooted in traditional First Nations ancestral foods that grow right here in Manitoba. Try dishes like bannock pizza, bison burgers, pickerel, and butternut squash fettuccine. Sourced locally, the wild rice, for example, comes from Indigenous communities in the north, and the pickerel comes from Lake Manitoba. Manitoba is known as a place for adventure and reflection, 2 words that describe my experience exploring the heart of Canada. Manitoba is a cultural epicenter, home to 6,000 years of Indigenous history. Whether you visit a museum or historic site, attend a powwow or film festival, Manitoba offers enriching and culturally immersive opportunities to gain a deeper understanding of Indigenous traditions and worldviews. Supporting Indigenous-owned and operated businesses is one way to contribute to Canada's ongoing cultural preservation efforts. Indigenous culture is not frozen in time. Like other cultures, they are dynamic and continually evolving. Despite all odds, Indigenous peoples have retained their rich and distinct cultural heritage. Throughout Manitoba, Indigenous chefs, artists, elders, and knowledge keepers are sharing their stories and inviting visitors to participate in memorable cultural activities with traditional and innovative approaches. I encourage you to accept their invitation. Go make memories. Go visit Manitoba. Thank you again to Travel Manitoba and Tourism Winnipeg for partnering with me on this episode. Start planning your trip today by visiting Travel Manitoba's website at travelmanitoba.com for all year-round travel advice, such as things to do, where to stay, food and drink recommendations, and information about the province. For all things to see and do in Winnipeg, including hidden gems and other Indigenous experiences and businesses, visit Tourism Winnipeg's website at tourismwinnipeg.com. There you'll find guides with everything you need to plan an epic trip to Winnipeg. Financially savvy travelers, there are more incredible travel stories coming your way. If you haven't already, double check you're following the Thought Card podcast on your favorite podcast player so you never miss a new episode every other Thursday. And if you enjoyed this series, let me know by leaving me a rating and review, as well as a comment, sharing your thoughts on Spotify. I'll catch you in the next one.